We will now welcome Mr. Kuf Dawala to the microphone to lead us in a word of prayer.
We begin in the name of God, who's gracious, who's most merciful. We ask for his assistance and his help in this commission and bless all of those that are leading it. We ask that we contribute towards it. We give it all the assistance we can, and we help towards uplifting of this country. This commission is important to us, dear God, so give us the understanding, the wisdom, and the knowledge, and the feeling for it. Let it be part of us, and we do not bypass this. Give us strength to carry on, and give all of those that lead in it, from top to bottom, the understanding, the strength, and whatever problems we have, help us to containerize it. Don't let it spread out, but keep everything within nice ways. We thank you, we glorify you, and we praise you, dear God.
We'd like to welcome everyone that is here and thank you for coming out to the next town hall for the Thorne Commission on Local Governance. We are happy to see you. We do apologize for the late start and we appreciate your patience in that regard. At this time, we'd like to call Ms. Janice Perriman to the microphone as she is going to do a presentation in honor of Kamal Brathwaite.
Good evening. This is in honor of one of Barbados's great icons, the late Edward Kamal Brathwaite, Limbo. And limbo's stick is a silence in front of me. Limbo, limbo, limbo like me. Limbo, limbo like me. Long dark night is a silence in front of me. Limbo, limbo like me. Stick hit sound and the ship like it ready. Stick hit sound and the dark still steady. Limbo, limbo like me. Long dark deck and the water surrounding me. Long dark deck and the silence is over me. Limbo, limbo like me. Stick is a whip and the dark deck is slavery. Limbo, limbo like me. Drumstick knock and the darkness is over me. Knees spread wide and the water is hiding. Limbo, limbo like me. Knees spread wide and the dark ground is under me. Down, down, down. And the drummer is calling me. Limbo, limbo like me. Sun coming up and the drummers are praising me. Out of the dark and the dumb gods are raising me. Up, 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 and the music is saving me. Hot, slow step on the burning ground. May he rest in peace.
We will now welcome to the microphone His Excellency Ambassador David Comachon, who will also pay tribute to Kamal Brathwaite.
Thank you, Crystal. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I too want to echo the sentiment that Barbados lost one of its truly, truly great sons yesterday. Not only Barbados, the Caribbean, the Pan-African world, in fact, I would say the world lost one of its great sons yesterday. Kamal Brathwaite was not only an outstanding poet who deserved to be awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature, should have been awarded it many years ago. He was also a groundbreaking historian. He basically developed the creolization theory as applied to the history of the Caribbean. He was one of the world's great culture scholars, an outstanding literary critic. I mean, you name it. He dominated not just, people think of him as a poet. Before he was a poet, he was a groundbreaking historian, scholar, academic. He dominated at least 4 different academic disciplines. I also want to let you know that Kamal Brathwaite made a very important contribution to the concept paper that you will be discussing tonight. When initially I put together my concept paper for the system of local governance, one of the first persons I sent it to for it to be scrutinized and for input was Kamau Braffett. And I will share with you the response that Kamau Braffett sent to me. It's headline, CP. CP is not Coleridge and Parry, that is cow pasture. Cow pasture, 28th January 2018. David, years and years ago now, when I was still proud of our parliamentary system, I remember lauding about it to a young English visitor who responded with one point I have always remembered. She said, "Ah, but you don't have any local government." And as time went on, I came more and more to recognize what she was saying. So when I see your proposals here, I had to pay attention because I'm glad to see them. And in your second paragraph, you would say significant. No, I'm glad to see them. And in your second paragraph, I wish you would say significant rather than some control. That's where I'd written a paragraph about the need for the people to have some control over the ship of state. So he's saying he wished I had said significant control rather than just some, which is what you outline in your document anyway. In adding to what you have here, I would certainly give the local government councils a strong emergency function. Hurricanes and landform collapses in St. Andrew and other parts of the island, and paranatural disasters like in our ongoing water and road/bridge problems, and the increasing issue of overcrowding in building. People's views of landscape, for example, being obscured by new structures that want to out-high the neighbors, and high-rise towers, though with limited urban land space and increasing population, you will have to expect some high-rising. And the increasing social problem of the loss of beaches in all aspects. And connection with this, but even wider, the loss of especially precious parts of the small island to tourism and gated communities. Those very parts that are being cut off from view and access. And under education, I would want to see significant local government council role in school discipline and the localization of some aspects of the curriculum. Like every community school, recognizing and knowing the name and uses of the plants growing in its district. And certainly significant space for local government councils in the control of violence and murders, and in always helping to maintain or enhance the beauty and therefore the integrity of the island, Kamau. So after receiving that, I incorporated into the concept the idea that the student assembly persons, as well as the assembly persons who will sit on school councils, school boards, would be brought together in a committee to brainstorm ideas about better pedagogical systems for the schools, and better discipline for the schools. Also, that the assemblies would have a role in interacting with the Town and Country Planning Department for projects that have the potential to cut down Bajans' access to their beaches or to the views of the landscape. So a number of the ideas that he expressed in this response to me were subsequently incorporated into the structure. So when we have these discussions at our town hall meeting, as we're having tonight, Kamau Braffett is here with us. And that is how it should be. Thank you very much.
We're so grateful for those lovely tributes, and at this time we'd like to have a minute of silence to reflect on the contribution of such a great laureate and Barbadian. Please stand. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your indulgence. We will now get into the program for today. I will first introduce my fellow panel members. To my left, we have Mr. Adrian Donovan, a member of the Thorne Commission. To my far right, we have Jennifer Walker, a fellow member, and to my immediate right, we have the chairman of the Thorne Commission, MP Ralph Thorne, Attorney General. Sorry.
Don't do that to me.
I might be speaking futuristically, sorry. Attorney, I don't think they will be very happy that I gave away his job. And I am Crystal Howell. Thank you for being here tonight. I will give a brief introduction and background into the proposal we have for the Thorne Commission, and I'd like to make sure everyone is fully aware that it is indeed a proposal, and we welcome any suggestions or feedbacks you have which you think would help to improve the proposal that we have put forward. If you think that there is something else that we should be doing, if there's something we left off that we should add on, this is the purpose of these town halls, because we want to have your input. This is not a situation where we're just going to put something out there and force persons to take what we think is best. We want to use as many channels as possible to try to find out what Barbadians think about what we are proposing, so that it is something for us as opposed to just something that we give to you. The proposed people assemblies will implement measures to improve accountability in governance, engage people participation, establish high standards in the public service, contribute creativity, intelligence, and energy to public affairs administration, deliver critical services to communities, protect neighborhood welfare, and participate in collective decision-making and administrative activities that are designed to foster social and national unity. The assemblies will be community-based, democratic, participatory governance structures based on voluntary, nonpartisan service independent of government ministers. And I know that that statement alone has caused a great deal of discussion amongst many different persons who are either for or against several aspects of that particular statement. The proposed structure will have one assembly for the parishes of St. Lucy, St. Andrew, St. Joseph, St. John, and St. Thomas, 2 assemblies in St. George, St. Peter, St. Philip, and St. James, 3 in Christchurch, and 4 in St. Michael. And this was initially proposed based on the population density of these particular parishes. This gives us a total of 20 people's assemblies. Membership can consist of an equal number of elected ex officio members, for example, the Transport Board or the Welfare Department, and so on, parish residents, and youth from secondary and tertiary educational institutions. Elections can be organized by the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, which can publish profiles of the various candidates that would put themselves forward as volunteers. Candidates will then address residents at a town hall meeting, and electioneering is not encouraged. The assemblies will be for a period of 3 years. The 20 assemblies will have approximately 30 members each, which will give us a total of 600 members. And these members will be serving in functions as follows: oversight of government agencies, community well-being teams, environmental protection and improvement, education, community development and sports, vendors' licenses, community forums, planning permissions, government development planning, and a people's cooperative. So you can see that the mandate for each of these assemblies is going to be extremely wide, which is why we need as many volunteers as possible. To get the conversation going, I will give you a series of questions. However, you are not limited to just answering these questions. And if there's anyone in the assembly that has any suggestions or proposals that you would like to present, you can feel free to do so. We are trying to make to you is one that will best be able to serve the heart of what we are trying to achieve. So if you think that the structure we've proposed, you think there's something better, I welcome you to the microphone. We definitely encourage any other alternative thoughts that you may have. So, do you support a system of local government in Barbados? Yay! Do you support the proposal that each assembly should be nonpartisan? Do you support the proposal for each assembly to comprise 30 persons? What do you think should be the minimum age for membership on a People's Assembly? Do you support the proposal that each assembly should comprise a mix of elected private persons who live in the geographical area, together with persons nominated from specific departments within the public service? Do you think that the nominated public servant should sit on the assembly in his or her capacity as a public servant? Noting that each assembly may cover more than one constituency, what do you think should be the relationship, if any, between the People's Assembly and the parliamentary representative? Should sessions of the assembly be generally conducted in public? And finally, when would you wish to see a system of local government implemented in Barbados? Now, while you have some time to think about those questions, I'd also like to put out there, because this is being streamed live, just a reminder to the persons in the crowd who may want to misbehave, you have to set an example to those out there. This is not to anyone specifically, but we are being streamed live. And for those who may feel shy to come to the microphone, you're also welcome to give your input by submitting an email to the thorne.commission@barbados.gov.bb. You can also contact us at 535-1600, and we're also on Facebook and Instagram, so you can send your messages there as well. And we invite you to like the page and the Instagram account And feel free to share all the information that you see available. So we turn the microphones over to you now.
We hope to have a very good meeting tonight. I see there's a cross section of people from Christchurch representing. I see people from Eden Lodge, from Amity Lodge, Rendezvous, Carter's Gap.
You know where everybody
Atlantic
lives.
Shores. Yes. A lot of familiar faces. So this is your time now. Time to talk.
You could come to the microphone and give your name and your presentation.
My name is Charles Mongery, and I am retired. I live in Goodland Gardens, Christchurch. What I want to say is a bit of a statement and a question and a recommendation. And I think it will fall under the oversight of government agencies.
Can you come
Prime
closer to the
Minister,
microphone so we can pick up?
the Prime Minister Mia Mottley, in her previous presentations, a couple of things she said is she wanted Barbados to, I think she was saying a different way of thinking and doing things and getting it right the first time and providing excellence in everything that the government does and the private sector. Now, I bought into what she said. And with regards to where Barbados is right now in the ease of doing business, we are, in that index, we are at about 128. And that concerns me because I think we have been there at that position for a couple of years. So what I'm wondering is what is impeding Barbados from being able to move up in that index, let's say above, below 100. I know one of the things, because the government did look at it, and one of the things that they came to the conclusion that the approvals for construction, some of those approvals for construction were like taking 2 years. And they recommended that the approvals for construction, some of them should be given in 12 weeks. Now, I'm not sure that 12 weeks, when that became effective from, but that was one of the, and the reason why we want to move up in that index, the ease of doing business, because we want to attract investors to come to Barbados and invest in Barbados. And if they look at Barbados and they see that it is not cumbersome and to come and set up in Barbados compared with other countries, then they will come. So that is something that I think we are working on it, but I would like to find out how far we have gotten in that and which government department is working on it. And if we can't say which government department is working on moving us up in the ease of doing business, I think we should set up a committee to work on that. And I put the question to Mr. Ralph Thorne and anybody else that would like to answer or speak to what I just said.
So in response to your question, that's actually under the ministry. Okay. That actually falls under the ministry of Minister Marsha Cattle, and that was actually discussed today with the talk business function that BIBA would have held, where Dr. Kennedy Van Greenwich and Prime Minister Motley would have spoken at length about the ease of doing business and the several factors that play into why our position is currently so low. And the president of BIBA, she also gave a great deal of commentary raised that concern. I am not sure if you would be able to catch the replay because it was on Facebook, and to not take away from the focus for today, would you be able to go on Facebook to review all of the comments, because it was at least 2 hours of conversation they had where that is concerned. And it was very insightful in terms of all the things that they're looking to do to improve the ease of doing business rating.
Well, I am not on Facebook.
Okay.
I'm not really keen on going on Facebook.
Okay.
I use YouTube and WhatsApp and Gmail.
Okay.
But what I can say is a lot of the presentations that, like the Prime Minister Mia Motley, whenever she speaks, wherever, you can always find her presentation on YouTube. Also, a lot of what the Barbados Labour Party does, you can also find that on YouTube. So if it's possible to put that
I'm sure it's probably on YouTube already.
on YouTube, I would prefer to look at it on YouTube.
What I would do, we can have a discussion afterwards, and I will see if one of the persons within the communications team will be able to help me to identify the video. I'm sure it's probably very recent, as it only happened today, and we'll be able to find that for you so I can share it for you and anyone else that would like to have access to that information, because it was quite informative, and it's something that we should all be interested in my opinion. But as I said, I didn't want to take away too much from today's conversation, but I also wanted to make sure you had the information you're asking for.
So we are working on
They are
moving it.
working
Right,
and
okay.
trying to mobilize. The main takeaway that I had from today was the relationship with digitizing a lot of the information, because everything is so heavily paper-based. That is one of the things that contributes to things moving so slowly. The digitization process obviously can't happen in a vacuum, because persons have been accustomed to functioning in that way for such a long time that they now would have to be retrained, and then there are persons who will have to be brought in to assist with that process as well. And there are other efficiencies that they're looking into. That it was a very comprehensive plan that they're going to work towards, and it is going to take a lot of work, a lot of rethinking and changing the structure of the culture of how Barbadians think and operate. And we have a lot of work to do. Everybody has their part to play, and I'm looking forward to see the improvements in the Ease of Doing Business report, not just for business persons and approving of contracts and the way how the court system operates, the way how we have access to clean water. All of those things contribute to our report, and there's certain things that we are excelling in, but the focus should be on the ones that we are doing poorly, and that information is also available online, so you can see specifically the areas that Barbados is doing poorly in and the ones that they'll be focusing on.
Yeah.
But as I said, there is a plan. It seems to be, in my opinion, very comprehensive, and I would be very happy to share that information with you afterwards.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
No problem.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Alex Waith. I'm a Barbadian that spends about half a year every year for the last 10 years in Barbados, in Christchurch. And this is my old school.
Good school.
There's several questions that you had asked. Do you support a system of local government? Well, first of all, I don't.
Okay.
But I'll get back to that shortly. I want to commend you for having these town hall meetings. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
To me, they're effective ways of dealing with issues. And actually, I'd like to suggest that we have more of these town hall meetings instead of actually engaging in having an expensive administration. It may not be that expensive, actually. So really, I want to ask you how much these people assemblies would cost. I think that in a time of austerity, you may actually want to, if you're going to go ahead with implementing it, that you actually delay it, because I think it's going to be a tremendous cost to the country. So I'm concerned about the cost. And the reason I say this is because we have 30 MPs, in a country that has 285,000 persons. And I think that these MPs should actually be able to do this job without too much work added to what they're currently doing, because I think we elected them to actually do the kind of work that is proposed here. And the functions in terms of oversight of government agencies, excellent community well-being teams, sanitation, road repairs, education, community development, and sports. Indeed, we have ministries that actually are dedicated to these programs. All of these concepts here are covered under the various ministries, which have ministers, and the ministers have personal assistants. They have a PS. You have so much of already a bureaucracy that I think that one should really concentrate on improving the efficiency. And before you're talking about, of course, making it easy to do business and so on in Barbados, and that's one of the pressing problems that we have, is the ease of doing business in Barbados, is obviously to improve the various ministries and improve the various departments of the ministries. So to have another layer of government, I think, is unnecessary, simply because has been my experience that local governments haven't worked that well through the years, unless somebody can give me some evidence that these local governments have worked well in the Caribbean, and even to some degree in places like Canada. Now, I live in Toronto, and about 2 years ago, with the election of the provincial government, we have the provincial governments and we have the federal government. The actual, and this caused quite an uproar actually, they cut back the councillors from 46 to 26, from 45 to 26 councillors. Indeed, in a population of 2.93 million, right? We had 45 councillors, and they've actually cut them back to 26 councillors in order to obviously affect savings in salaries, in administration, and duplication. Because I just see this as another duplication of services. It's beautiful, don't get me wrong. The ideas proposed here, and of course even the input that Kamau gave is fantastic, and I actually would love to see if this could really work properly. But again, in an area, at a time of austerity, do we really need to have this, this kind of local government? So as I said, you have 2.93 million and 26 councillors. Now, we also have the federal system and the provincial system. So another 25 federal MPs represent the particular areas, and 25 provincial MPs. So each, you could break it down if mathematically you can say you have like 37,000 people being represented by one person, right? Barbados is, to me, Barbados is too small. You don't, for that. And the MPs, unless you're going to cut the MPs' salaries maybe in half or something to that effect, in order to support to pay for the the structure, the administration, because I see you had an area there where you said there would be some payment, even though it'd be volunteer. You did say that Parliament can include a financial allocation in government's annual estimates of expenditure to be divided equally among the people's assemblies and subject to audit by the Auditor General, which is great. But I would like to ask you to consider the expense involved there. Consider the expense of duplication. Consider if you can't really look at, and we're in a digital age. You set up a portal, you set up a website, people give their input on that website, on that portal, okay, about the issues affecting their particular communities, all right? You have various clubs and organizations, whether it's the Lions or Seroptimists. We need maybe more input from them in terms of what's going on. I can walk around my area and see what is going on. I think anyone can drive down the street. And again, I would say the MPs who have not been responsible enough to go out into their communities, in their constituencies, at least once a month. I think that it wouldn't take away from their other jobs. They go out there once a month, look around, see what's going on, speak to the people, and then engage to make sure that these ministries that are set up, that are very expensive to run, of course, you've been talking about cutting back in various ministries, cutting back certain services and all that. And you got to make sure then that you don't end up cutting in one area and then having a whole administrative nightmare going on. So engage the community groups, the non-governmental organizations. There's so many of them in Barbados. And we know what the issues are. We live in a small community. This is not a big country. So that's what I'm probably emphasizing. Again, I'm not criticizing the whole proposal in terms of the fundamental principles and the proposed structure. The proposed structure I am, because I don't see why you need to divide up. Again, you're almost defeating the purpose by having one assembly in St. Lucie, 2 assemblies, 3 assemblies, 4 assemblies. And I know it's based on population density, but to me, I think that's just defeating the purpose. When you can have, if you really want to have local representation, you would really want you want an assembly in almost in every parish, and indeed, well, maybe not every constituency, but every parish. But what I'd like to see again is an emphasis put on having members of parliament really represent their communities, because we elected them to do these things that are actually in this document. And I think I'll close there. I don't think I have anything else to say. This is another suggestion. Newsletters can come out from the MPs. Postings on the website of issues in the community can be posted and dealt with. And indeed, we should have assemblies like this every 3 months in order to discuss the issues and the problems of the various areas of Barbados. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution. We'd like to welcome to the Town Hall the Honorable Adrian Ford. We appreciate your presence here. And we give an opportunity for members of the panel to respond. Okay. Thank you for your contribution, and I hope that you'll be making your submission in writing so that we could take it into consideration, and also any counter proposals, because I do understand your concerns, but I think most Barbadians would agree that there are many vulnerable persons in Barbados who are not reached or who are not able to have certain aspects of the functions that we're proposing reaching them. As small as we are, there are still persons who fall through the cracks. So if you don't think that this structure would be suitable in making sure that they don't remain in that vulnerable state, we definitely would welcome what you think would help that situation.
Thank you. This is working. Alex, I just wanted to say to you that it is not so much about reducing the responsibility of the parliamentary representative, but it is about giving the citizen the right to participate in decisions. It's about civic duty and civic responsibility. I've found over the years a lot of the relationships between the parliamentary representative and the people he represents is paternalistic. He or she can behave like a god in the geographical area, and you want to reduce that. You're in the 21st century, and you want to give people a sense of their own importance, a sense of their relevance. Charles came before you. Charles is from Goodland, and I wanted to ask him about that. There's a serious drainage problem in Goodland. Is that not true, Charles? Yes, specific areas of Goodland. And unless they call the parliamentary representative, people feel that it will not get done. And I think situations like that require a kind of a partnership between the citizens, between the residents and the parliamentary representative, between the citizens and the government. And so I just want to repeat to you that it is not so much about lessening the duties of a parliamentarian, because I don't foresee that those duties will be lessened, but it is about giving the citizen a formal opportunity, and when I say formal, to set up a body called a People's Assembly, in which he has the legal right and the responsibility to participate in those decisions, to say what he wants done in his neighborhood, and to say how he wants it done without these decisions being made in a very paternalistic way, without these decisions being made from on high. You mentioned the question of numbers. I don't think it's a numbers game. You refer to Canada, and we're not arguing, by the way, because we appreciate your contribution. Canada, as large as it is, has one prime minister. We're small and we have one prime minister too. So I think that kind of defeats the argument as to numbers. It is not so much about, yes, it will be another tier, it will be another bureaucracy, but this bureaucracy will be populated by the citizens as opposed to public officers. Yeah? It is really giving the citizen an entree into public administration, if you wish. That's what it's all about. And we are joined in that. Philosophically, we are joined in that we believe that the citizen has that right and deserves the opportunity to be a part of the administration of his neighborhood, of his country. That's how we feel.
What I'd also like to add to that, because you also mentioned the financial aspect, the initial proposal is for persons to volunteer. And any finance or budget that is given to the assemblies is to be spent on things that the community says that they want. So for once, and I'm using that loosely, the money is being spent on things the people think needs to be done in their communities. And if you have a problem with communities having a say in how the country's finances should be spent, then you probably have to put an alternative in your proposal. But I think that it is fair for persons to be able to have a say and say, if there's going to be a budget of X, Y, Z, we think it should be spent on this because we know our communities best and we know what our communities need, instead of somebody high up in the chain of command saying that this is what we think the community needs. So the budget is not going to be something that is not affordable for the country. All of that will be determined by the Ministry of Finance, and persons will have a say then in what they would like to see it spent on.
Yes, not, but you see, you don't want duplication of services.
We're trying to avoid that as well too.
Because,
so it's
you know,
like a cutting out of some of the bureaucracy and being able to go directly to the persons as opposed to some of the same things that hold up progress, because you have so simple that the community should be able to do for themselves without having to go through all of that level of bureaucracy.
Let me give you a little example. You'll notice that along the roads they clean the gutters, right? Mm-hmm. For years now. But when I was a little boy, there would be a donkey cart that would come by after the people have weeded and pick up that.
You've just
you know
aged
that hasn't been
yourself.
going on. So you're going to tell me that with the local council that actually that will actually improve? That's something I'm saying. Simply, there are very simple issues here, right? Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful idea. But what I'm saying is that, for my knowledge, I'm just saying I'm going to ask you then to tell me of successful cases of local councils, right? That has happened historically. Maybe David Comachong or somebody else has that historical perspective. But what I'm saying to you, it doesn't really enhance anything. What you need is a rethinking of how MPs operate. And it's not about lessening their duties or not asking them to. It is about rethinking the whole idea of cooperative economics, of working in each place. Because if I'm electing, if I'm paying my taxes, whatever, I don't know what the MPs make, but I'm paying my taxes for that person to do a job. They've also volunteered from their hearts or from their political persuasion, their social persuasion, to do something. They have to get out there and do it. I don't think, and the thing is, do people have the time? I've noticed they've tried with these volunteer type associations, and people don't go to the meetings. People don't participate. In the beginning, there's a big interest, and then it just fizzles out.
Alex, I wanted to ask you a question quickly, if you don't mind. You mentioned the cleaning of the road. Do you know who makes that decision presently as to which road and when?
It's a particular.
Somebody in the Ministry of Public Works or Transport and Works makes that decision right now. You don't know. None of us in here knows when it is going to happen, but we know it happens sometimes. Why not give to a People's Assembly the opportunity to be a part of that decision making, to say, look, give priority to Road X, because Road X is the worst of the roads in the constituency. If you're paving, don't pave a road where the people voted for you, for example. Pave the road that needs to be paved.
But that's what I'm saying. There needs to be rethinking of how we look at things anymore. It's no longer this idea of an MP being a lord or
no, not the MP,
or
not the MP. We feel that the people who live within that geographical area should have a say in making those decisions. You refer to cleaning the road.
What they're going to have us say, but is anything going to be done? Is it's going to be efficient that they're going to actually then come and clean up the place? What I'm saying is that there's been a lack of efficiencies. I'm just saying that these things you can see these things, anybody can see these things, whether you're an MP, whether you're a member of a council, you can see that these things are needed. The fact is, will it be done? That's all I'm saying.
Hopefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to respond to Alex. Alex,
You can still come, Jessica.
So sorry.
No, go on, Adrian.
I want to get Alex a particular issue that I'm well aware of, and some members in the panel and the audience are. There's a space behind obviously the Aberdeen Jones Center, a space that was used by members of the community to play dominoes and have drinks and socialize. Somebody, not from the community, decided they want to put a road tennis court there. Push out the men in the community. They can't drink no more, they can't blind. So the place of a road tennis court there to satisfy 4 people. So when either we had 3 or 4 young boys barefoot playing road tennis. The members of the community were left out. They were not consulted. A few weeks ago, we had to wait until the general election come. I talk politics now. They had to wait until the general election come for the members of the community to come and to tell the people that they want a community park for the children to enhance it and to have competitions for the people in the area. Return the community togetherness, try to come and drink, have a little rum, play dominoes and socialize. So the people in the community took over, and again, not being political, unfortunately, the man who behind it was the Honorable Minister Adrian Ford. They went to him and tell him, fellas, Mr. Minister or Mr. whoever, we want the park back in the hands of the community. And right now you're going to be Aberdeen Center, you see, that's what it is. Again, not being political, but Alex said, the people in the community, what do you call it, people's assemblies, community group, organization, the Gore Hill boys, whatever you want to call it, decided that they want their space back, and it came back. So all we're saying is, give back the people in the communities a little power so we can dictate and decide what we want in our community. Okay?
And to add to that, there are people in the community that see things that need being done, but oftentimes they're broke and they ain't got no money. So the assembly is trying to give them a budget to not only be able to empower to see things that need being done and do them, but to have some funding to be able to get it done instead of having to pull their pockets when they're really struggling. They can now have this opportunity to do so. And if you also would like examples of other assemblies that have worked, there's a young man in the audience in red, Khalil Kufdawala, who has submitted an extensive proposal that included various examples of assemblies that have worked in other countries. So I would encourage you and anyone else who'd like to have that conversation with him. He's done quite a bit of homework, and you can learn quite a lot from him.
And Alex, please make your submission in writing, if you don't mind. Thank you very much.
Good evening, panelists, community. My name is Jessica Bensley. I'm a resident in Atlantic Shores. I am an entrepreneur, and I am also an environmental scientist and policy expert, so there will be some bias in my few short comments. So, Mr. Commissioning, thank you for sharing Mr. Brathwaite's initial document with us. That was really enlightening, and I thank you for the work that has proceeded to bring us to this place. I do agree with local governance. I think it's critical for an all-inclusive country to move forward. There are a few points around that I would like to address. The first one, obviously, is I don't see any scope in the document that relates to the environment, that relates to the ocean or the land, which is the very thing that gives us our air. I believe that is a massive hole in the document. And I understand that it can interlay in other areas, but I think this would be a critical area to be addressed. Yeah.
The part 3 of the functions under environmental protection and improvement, this is as a summary. There's a much more extensive document which we can email to anyone who would like to have it. We're still in progress of building the website, so unfortunately, that's the reason why the larger document isn't widely available. But it states that the purpose would be to establish a sanitation and road repairs committee to respond to emergency cases of garbage pile-ups, excessive overgrown bushes or potholes, as well as general environmental protection and anti-littering campaigns. So it's very broad and general, and we would welcome your expertise and input into more detailed areas that you think People's Assembly can contribute to these particular areas, especially the blue economy, as that's a relatively new area for Barbados to explore. But we do appreciate your feedback, and if you have, like to continue.
When I, with all due respect, when I read that paragraph 3, I read it more as it relates to sanitation.
Okay.
And the environment is an entirely different thing. It is not only that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was one. The second point that I don't see anything addressed here is the subject of commerce and specifically innovation. In 10 years' time, with what is happening in the global economy, commerce as we know it will not be the same as it is now. And commerce, the way we conduct business and the way we retain our livelihoods. And somewhere in there, innovation and commerce, I believe it would be worthy to consider. Equally also with culture, I know that it's bled in certain other aspects, but the retention of culture is a critical part for national moving forward, for the country moving forward, yeah. And so then my 2 other final points. I do believe strongly in local governance. I have a structural logistical question. With a population just under 300,000, 600 members, it would either bring it to 0.2% of the population involved in governance, which to me seems incredibly low and not really diverse. And even if I took the population as divided it into 3, elder, youth, and active members, I'm still at 1.5% represented by local council, which seems quite low to me. At the same time, I also appreciate running a group of community members unpaid, voluntary, and getting high energetic contribution and level on a consistent basis is going to be a challenge just in itself, yeah. So I would be interested to know how those figures came about, and again, if with making this step forward, is 1.5% of the active working population true representative of what local governance is, or could be, yes, on local governance? How do we make sure that it really is transparent and it works for the good of all? Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica. I wanted, on the point of the environment, we do have a member of the commission who is one of Barbados' leading voices on matters of the environment. He doesn't want me to call his name, so I won't.
I was going to ask.
He's here tonight, though. Okay. And look, Barney Gibbs is a founder member of the Atlantic Shores Network. And that's an organization that has done a lot in terms of recycling in Barbados. We're going on about whether the garbage truck comes once every week or once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks. Of course, we're entitled to have the garbage truck come often. But that organization has been able to educate Barbadians on the need for recycling to accompany the issue of garbage disposal. And if we have, and that organization is informal. It was formed out of a neighborhood. It is the people's initiative. Government has not done it. The people in the neighborhoods have done it. And I see something like that assisting the initiative towards local government, or governance, if you want to call it that. It tells me that there are some people in Barbados who are already practicing local government, local governance. We just need to formalize it now. And as using the question of recycling as an example, that would be one of the initiatives that a local assembly can use to educate the rest of Barbados as to the need for recycling. Yeah. Because the issue of garbage disposal remains unresolved unless we take up recycling as a major initiative.
It's a question of what we do with our resources and how consumptive we are as in the global economy as a society. What are we consuming? What are we throwing?
Precisely.
But in terms of the ASN, as you know, myself, Barney, and a few other dedicated. It took us 7 years to get to
Precisely.
where we are. We have
Precisely.
64 households engaged, about another 150. But that was a lot of sweat from probably, I would say it actively started with about 15 members, and we've probably dwindled to about 5 or 6 committed members over the 7 to 9 years.
And the government cannot, the point is the government cannot manage a program of recycling. Recycling has to be managed by the people who live in the communities.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with government.
But you know,
it is about local initiative.
When I say environment as well, my point around this is going well beyond just waste and consumption. It's our marine environment, our land use.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like we have to look through all the stratas.
Which
yeah.
is quite significant for Christchurch.
Massive.
And of course St. James.
Massive.
Yes.
Massive.
Yes.
Massive.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I just want to pay tribute to the
We appreciate
Atlantic
that.
Shores Network. And there's one in Graham Hall as well. And these are examples of people in local communities who cooperate with each other, who actually have their own forms of government in a sense. So, Alex, we do need local government.
He's going to leave here a believer. With regards to the commerce, innovation, culture, retention, we definitely will have some discussion around that. St. Peter brought up the issue of culture retention as well. They believe that St. Peter has the most spirited parish for culture, so I guess Christchurch will prove them wrong. And the mention of transparency and accountability, we will be including the remit of the Auditor General, so I am going to be on this like a hawk because I do not want our name called in the Auditor General's report. I'd be very upset. So we will definitely have that aspect.
Yeah, and I think as it relates to the actual decision-making process of local governance, the transparency of the people who are involved. You know, what is the motivation behind being involved? Yeah.
You mean for the person who's volunteering, what their motivation
at local
would be?
governance level, yes.
Okay.
Is to ensure that, again, there's no level of corruption or a,
Yes.
you know, a mixed opinion or a mixed output or commitment to go forward in a different direction that doesn't benefit the whole. Yeah.
Thank you.
On the question of commerce, Jessica, no, you can.
Yes. Yeah.
David has been very strong on the issue of enfranchising people in communities, the question of vendors' licenses and that kind of thing, that a local assembly could promote matters of commerce at the local level. You drive around Barbados and you see people, there's a lady in Darrow's Road, for example, who sells breakfast on mornings. I'm quite fascinated by that. You drive by and there she is selling breakfast, there she is, she has a thriving business. And I think that a people's assembly could manage matters of this nature. They could advise the Ministry of Health as to whether these things are functioning in a hygienic way.
Well, and so there's that, and certainly for Christchurch and Oystons, there's the taxi drivers, there's the fish vendors. I mean, there are so many specific areas, beach vendors. And my friend mentioned this evening, Miss Archer, she mentioned that 80% of tourists that come to Barbados come to Oystons once. Correct. Most of them we don't capture twice, unfortunately, which we could.
Yes, we know
but
about that.
80% of tourists come to Oystons. So already if we're getting 80% of the visitors just at the bottom of this hill, you know, these are the elements we need to be thinking, well, in 10 years' time, how do we need to be governing ourselves so that it remains a legacy and an economic well-being for all?
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Brooks.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
My name is
evening.
David Brooks. I basically coming from the Christchurch West area. I have a couple of areas that I want to mention and clear up a couple of things too, if I may. I think I start off with the representation or the cost of the MP. A lot of people seem to think that MP gets a lot of money. And I'm always telling people, you know, the parliamentary site that we have has a search engine. You can go onto it and you can search about the acts and the bills being done and everything else. You got the emoluments and all that, where it shows all the people's salaries and so on. And a lot of people don't realize that an MP only gets a little over $5,000 a month. I mean, we're not talking about the duty-free allowance. So that's, when you multiply that by 3 and by 12, you're coming at not under $2 million a year to pay the MPs. So I don't know where, we're not talking ministers. We're not talking about minister's salary. I'm talking about the MP salary. But you know, everybody says the MP this and the MP that, and it costs a lot of money. No, we have ministers. Some may argue that the cabinet is very big, fairly large. No, but that's a debate for another time. But just to go back now and to lend support to this situation where for local government, I've been a proponent of it for the longest time. I've seen it, well, I've done some travel in Jamaica and stuff, and I've seen it work in there. But one of the areas that I particularly got more interested in it because the software company that I worked with some years ago, I don't work with them anymore. They had a software, financial system software that was out of Australia. And one of the modules was local government. And they also have a central government too. In fact, I went to my former boss just before the elections, got all the paperwork and the brochures and so on, and gave it to Ms. Cattle. Just not saying I'm not connected with the company anymore, but she has the stuff to do with this particular software company. And they have case studies where you can go on and check. It's called Technology One out of Australia. They have case studies. But that's just one example. There are probably many others that we could look at, whereby we have systems that can help facilitate running a local government or even central government. And it has all the areas for dealing with all the areas that we're talking about here, education and so on and so forth. So the areas there, and that's one of the things that, like I said, that sort of excited me, because one of the things I remember, I'll give an example. One of our customers, National Water Commission in Jamaica. Now, you know, Jamaica is coming out of IMF program. They went into it some years ago. And I remember when we put the system in, they had a budget module. We had them all, we upload the budget stuff. We compare the budget to actuals, and everybody have a meeting and so on. Well, I wasn't involved in that, but we were the ones putting it up. We said, there is a feature called funds availability checking. Oh, we don't want that. We just have our meetings and we look and we see the budget. It says so-and-so, and we go over budget or we under budget, and that's the end of that. And we have some discussions about it. When the IMF came in, they went through the system and they said, you must turn the funds availability checking on. Now, it gave me a little work. But what that meant was that if somebody wants to requisition a reamer paper and says, you have a budget of $1,000 and you're already at $995, and a reamer paper costs $15, it's going to stop you from, not stop you from requisitioning it, but you're going to have to go up the ladder to get authorization so you don't bust your budget. And if it goes, depending on how it goes up, it will go right up to the chairman or the president of the organization. So this means it comes in with accountability and controls, so that we don't go over, because we always talk about going over budgets and stuff. That's just one example that I remember. I remember the IMF was particularly involved with going in there and saying, you must turn this on. And from what I understand, Jamaica as a whole, this is only one organization, as a whole seems to be coming out reasonably good from their program. That's what I'm hearing. One of the main things I came for here was discussing with Barney earlier, is that I'm also part of the Christchurch West District Emergency Organization. And that is an area which you haven't addressed directly in the thing, but one of the things that we have issues with that is to get volunteers. It's a voluntary organization. Unfortunately, you get a lot of partisan, because of this, it's all connected to a constituency, so therefore it gets somewhat, everybody thinks it's to do with a political party, because it's Christchurch West and it's Christchurch South and it's St. George North and South and all that kind of thing. We've had to fight that in Christchurch West because we had some issues, and I understand many of the DEOs are suffering badly because the people would like to volunteer, but when they're going, they get this touch of this partisan ruling and stuff like that, and it jolts them and brings them out. Now I can wear my party hat and I can wear my DEO hat, but some people just can't seem to be able to do that. I mean, sometimes we do merge them with human beings, we were integrated. We have a, but one of the things, I mean, I've been at the boroughs, I've been on constituency executive for a couple of years, but now I'm with the DEO, so when I work, I simply say, the DEO, if you are anybody and you require assistance, then it doesn't matter what party or who you are, you need assistance. One of the things that we managed to do, and there again talking about walking around and doing things, I remember our chairman, I'm not here in an official capacity, DEO, I'm the treasurer, but because I don't have a mandate to be here, this here as a list. And I don't even think we're completely finished yet, but we moved from a list of 2 deceased persons to a list of over 25 people last year around the hurricane season, who were vulnerable people who were either shut-ins, people who were handicapped in some way or lived by themselves, that sort of thing. And the list, we still need to be doing it all the time and continuing. We deal with drainage, we deal with all that kind of thing too. So the DEOs, to some extent, you will have to communicate, there will have to be some dotted line communication between there. I also know that from the DEO's situation, they're trying to get away from the constituency situation and move back to like Christchurch itself. And maybe one of the things that they can do, the 20 areas that we're talking about here, is that we could look at doing the DEOs based on the same thing and have it as still independent, but an arm of